Okay guys, this is the 7.2 practice that I wanted to work through with you today. So I'll post this on YouTube, and then tomorrow in class you can work on the quiz review. Monday I'll go over the quiz review with you, and we'll take our quiz on Tuesday. So what we need to remember is that the sine value and the cosine value, when you are given an ordered pair, sine value is the y, cosine value is an x. That's when you have, or when given, an ordered pair, or you're using an ordered pair, okay? That's what we need to remember for sine and cosine. So in these first examples, they're telling you what angles that they want you to use. In the first one, they want you to use 60 and 45. The second one, they want you to use 225 and 30. They want you to find sine, cosine, and tangent. I'm going to find the sine and the cosine for everything. I'll do a tangent one at some point during the process of all of these, but you guys are going to have to actually work out a tangent one on your quiz because it's super, super complicated. So we'll do the sine and cosine right now for 105, all right? They're asking us to use 60 and 45. So for number 15, the first thing I'm going to do is look at 60 degrees on the unit circle, and I'm going to look at 45 on the unit circle. So 60 on my unit circle is 1/2 root 3 over 2. So 1/2 root 3 over 2, and 45 is root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. So root 2 over 2, comma, root 2 over 2. Remember, our x value is the cosine, your y value is the sine. Go ahead and write that down so you have something to refer to. X is cosine and y is sine. Very important. Okay. So now we're going to look and we're going to find the sine and the cosine of these two, of the exact value of cosine and sine at 105 degrees. So the first thing we need to do is understand that if we're going to find the sine, we're doing the angles added together. So u plus v, or s plus t, however you want to look at it, but it's going to be 60 plus 45. So I come over here to my formulas, and when we're adding the two angles, we're going to use this formula right here. So it's sine, cosine, cosine, sine. So it's going to be sine of 60 times the cosine of 45 plus cosine of 60 times the sine of 45. And remember, when you guys are doing this on your quiz, you will have these formulas written out for you in front of you so you can refer to them. So the sine of 60 is going to be root 3 over 2. Cosine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Plus the cosine of 60 is 1/2 times the sine of 45 is root 2 over 2. So now we're going to simplify. Square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. 2 times 2 is 4. Plus 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2 over 2 times 2 is 4. And when we simplify this a little more, I have a common denominator of 4. And I say this can be the square root of 2 written as the square root of 2 plus, square root of 6 plus the square root of 2 over 4. You cannot simplify any more than that, guys. It stays just like that. So now if we're going to find the cosine of 60 plus 45, we're going to use the same ordered pairs as above. But now I'm going to look at the cosine formula when I'm adding the two angles together. And it's cosine, cosine minus sine, sine. So again, just be careful at the actual formula that you're using. So we're going to have cosine of 60 times cosine of 45 minus sine 60 times sine 45. So the cosine of 60 from our ordered pair above is the square root of 3 over 2. So cosine 60, so I look up here, cosine 60 is 1/2. So I have 1/2 times the cosine of 45 is the square root of 2 over 2, minus the sine of 60 is square root of 3 over 2, times the sine of 45, which is the square root of 2 over 2. Now we simplify. 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2 over 2 times 2 is 4, minus the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6 over 2 times 2 is 4. When we simplify this, we have a common denominator of 4. So I can rewrite this. The numerator is the square root of 2 minus the square root of 6. And that is as simplified as you can make that problem. All right, now we're going to go and work on the second one here. And we're going to find the exact value of sine and cosine. And we are going to use the two angles, 225 and 30. So again, I'm going to write over here, okay? I have 225 degrees. What is that ordered pair? And then 30 degrees. What is that ordered pair? So we go to our unit circle. 225 is negative root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2. So I have negative root 2 over 2, comma, negative root 2 over 2. 30 is going to be root 3 over 2 and 1/2, both positive. So root 3 over 2, 1/2. So now we're using the same formulas, sine and cosine, but I'm subtracting these two angles. So to find the sine, it would be sine of 225 minus 30. So let's look at the sine formula when we're subtracting angles. That would be sine cosine minus cosine sine. So I have sine of 225 times the cosine of 30 minus cosine 225 times sine of 30. So again, use from our ordered pair the sine of 225. This is my cosine. This is my sine. This is my cosine. This is my sine. So I have sine of 225 is negative root 2 over 2 times the cosine of 30, which is root 3 over 2, minus cosine of 225, which is negative root 2 over 2, times sine of 30, which is 1/2. Simplify, I get negative root 6 over 4 minus negative root 2 over 4. Two negatives, guys, gives us a positive, so this simplifies to negative root 6 plus root 2 over 4. Okay, so now we're going to do the exact same thing, but now we're going to find the cosine. So cosine of 225 minus 30. Now if you look at the cosine formula, it goes cosine, cosine, sine, sine, but there's a plus in the middle. When you're subtracting the angles from the beginning, on the cosine formula, the plus goes in the middle. So it's cosine 225 times the cosine of 30 plus sine of 225 times the sine of 30. So cosine of 225, negative root 2 over 2. Cosine of 30, root 3 over 2. Plus sine of 225, negative root 2 over 2. Sine of 30 is 1/2. Simplify. You have negative root 6 over 4 plus a negative root 2 over 4. Simplify this a little more. You have negative square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 over 4. All right, moving along for 49. All right, they're asking us to find, I'm just going to work on the sine problem here. I'm not going to do the tangent one. Again, we'll do tangent a little later. I'll do an example, but it's very long, drawn-out process. So I'm just going to work on sine. On your quiz, you're just going to have a sine or a cosine one. So 49 is telling us to use sine of u plus v. So they're already telling us what formula to use. I'm going to write it down real quick. Let me go over to my formulas. U plus v. So it would be sine u cosine v plus cosine u sine v. So sine of u times the cosine of v plus the cosine of u times the sine of v. All right, so we don't have an ordered pair to use. They've given us information about triangle u and triangle v. They told me that the sine of u is 5 over 13, and they told me that the cosine of v, so let me do this over here, cosine of v is negative 4 over 5, okay? They're telling me that both of them are in quadrant 2. So quadrant 2, ladies and gents, if I look at quadrant 2, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So quadrant 2 is right here. That means my x value is negative and my y value is positive. That's very important. So in my U triangle, when they tell me sine, well, sine is the same as y over r. So in my variables of x, y, and r, I know that y is 5 and r is 13. So in order to find x, we just use the Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. X squared plus 25 equals 169. Subtract 25 from both sides, you get x squared equals 144. So x equals 12. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say x equals 12, but I have to remember, since this is in the second quadrant, my x is actually a negative 12. So before I move on, I'm going to write right here in a box to help myself out what the sine, cosine, and tangent are for u. So the sine of u is y over r, so that's going to give me 5 over 13. The cosine of u is x over r, so that's going to give me negative 12 over 13. And tangent of u is y over x, so that's going to give me 5 over negative 12. Very important information right here, guys. Very, 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 very important in working out your next few problems. So now I come over here, same exact thing. They're telling me the cosine. Well, ladies and gents, cosine is x over r. So I have x equals 4, don't know what y equals, and r equals 5. I know that my x value is negative here for 2 reasons. One, because r can never be negative, so I know that negative goes with the 4. But they also told me at the beginning that my angle lies in quadrant 2, which means my x value is negative. So either way you look at it, your x needs to be negative. So x squared plus y squared equals r squared. 16 plus y squared equals 25. Y squared equals 9, so y equals 3. So right here in a box, I'm going to write down that same piece of information that I wrote for triangle U. I'm going to write it for triangle V. So the sine of U is y over r. That's 3 over 5. Cosine of U is x over r, and that gives me negative 4 over 5. Tangent of U is y over x, and that's going to give me 3 over negative 4. Again, extremely useful information to answer the question that they asked us at the very beginning. They wanted the sine of u plus v. So I'm going to rewrite this formula, and I'm going to say, okay, the sine of u plus v. It's the sine of u times the cosine of v plus cosine u times the sine of v. So I look at my boxes here and I say I'm going to replace the sine of u. I look up here, it's 5 over 13. The cosine of v, look over here to the right. This should be a v on all these. I don't know why I wrote u. Cosine of v is negative 4 over 5. Then I have a plus sign, so I take the cosine of u. So look to the left. Cosine is negative 12 over 13. And then I have the sine of v, which is 3 over 5. And now I simplify. Multiply the numerators. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. And then I have 13 times 5 is 65. Plus negative 12 times 3 is negative 36. 13 times 5 is 65. Every single time you do these problems, guys, you should get the same denominator here. So you're good to go. Now I can just simplify the numerators. I can add them together. A negative 20 and a negative 36 gives me negative 56 over 65. And I look at this number and I make sure, can I simplify further? If I cannot simplify any further, then you're good to go. All right, this you guys have not seen, and I wanted to introduce this to you today before you did your quiz review tomorrow, and we could talk about this tomorrow. But what they're doing here, it says, for the following, write each expression as sine, cosine, or tangent of an angle, then find the exact value. What you guys are doing is you're working backwards. you're looking at this formula that they gave you and you're comparing it to the formulas that you have to figure out what angle they're actually talking about on the unit circle. So I look here, this is obviously a tangent formula. So I look at my tangent formulas. Is this when we're adding two angles together with a plus sign in the middle here, or is it when we're subtracting two angles with a minus sign? So if you guys notice, this is 280 minus 240. So the angles that they're talking about, it's 280 minus 40, which gives me the angle 240 degrees. So what they're asking for is the tangent of 240 degrees. Well, 240 is on the unit circle. So I go to the unit circle, 240 is negative 1/2, negative root 3 over 2. Negative 1/2, comma, negative root 3 over 2. This is my x value, this is my y. Remember guys, tangent is y over x. So I can figure this out. I can take my y value, negative root 3 over 2, divide it by negative 1/2. When we divide fractions, we keep, change, flip. So I have negative root 3 over 2 times, I flip this over, it becomes negative 2 over 1. My two negatives cancel out. 2 on top crosses off with 2 on the bottom. So you could answer this question and tell me that the tangent of 240 degrees is the positive square root of 3. Okay, so again, we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to look over here and I'm going to say, okay, well, which formula are they even talking about here? Which formula goes sine, cosine, plus sine, cosine? So I look, it's definitely not tangent. Okay, it's not cosine because cosine goes cosine, cosine, sine, sine. So it's sine, cosine, plus sine, cosine. Well, if you notice, this formula right here says sine of one, cosine of the other, plus cosine of one, sine of the other. So what they're doing is they want the exact value of sine of these two angles added together. So 140 plus 160. You guys add that together. 140 plus 160 equals how much? 300. So I go to the unit circle and I say, okay, at 300, what is the ordered pair? It's 1/2 negative root 3 over 2. So it's 1/2 negative root 3 over 2. Remember, my x value is the cosine. My y value is the sine. I want the sine of 300. It's the square root of 3 over 2. So you would tell me sine 300 equals negative square root of 3 over 2. And then lastly, I'm going to look again at my formulas. Which formula says cosine, cosine, sine, sine? Well, it's obviously cosine, guys. Now what you have to pay attention to is in this right here, they are adding the angles together. In my formula for cosine, when it's cosine, cosine, sine, sine, and we're adding together, what the original question is asking is the two subtracted. So you guys would say what they're looking for is the cosine of 200 minus 80. So 200 minus 80 is 120. So I go to my unit circle and I say, okay, where is 120 on the unit circle? And it's negative 1/2, positive root 3 over 2. So negative 1/2, positive root 3 over 2. Remind yourself, your x value is cosine, your y value is sine. So since we're looking for cosine, you would say cosine of 120 equals negative 1/2. So in this case, we're just working backwards. Any questions you guys have about that, please let me know tomorrow when we're working on the review, and I will answer anything and everything. All right, I'm going to post this now.